SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jaho Jeff Kidos, Mvskoke Radio Mabu Hedged. Welcome to our program here on this beautiful Okmulgee day today. Appreciate you all listening in to us. Now, we, of course, have all been watching and listening to the news, and it's all virus. I'm sorry to say we're kind of falling behind now as the numbers change. They're going up instead of the other way, but we're going to deal with that official business kind of thing from Mvskoke Creek Nation in our second segment. But first of all, we've got census here. Now, you've probably been seeing advertisements, television, you've heard it on radio, and of course the TV and newspapers. But joining us today is Amanda Rutledge, Director of the Public Relations Department, and Tara Branson Thomas, who is Acting Secretary for the Nation. You guys are handling quite a job, first of all. We've all been aware of the census calls, people saying we've got to report, we've got to have accurate numbers. It's so essential to actually, and tied to federal funding and things like that, of course, and other statistical needs. But first of all, let's get a capsule of what we've got, how the tribe is conducting its campaign. Amanda?
Yes. Thanks for having us, Gary. So far, we as Mvskoke Creek Nation have come together and formed our Census Committee, which is made up of public relations, planning and grants, citizenship, and a few other departments, some social services, to encourage and ask our citizens to respond to the census and to tell them how to respond to the census accurately and why that information is important. Of course, it's important for funding things in local communities as well as tribal services. It impacts things like highway planning and construction. It impacts local school funding, housing dollars, healthcare. So it touches lots of components in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Tara?
Yeah, so we're encouraging citizens to complete the census this year because we are, as a state, kind of on the cusp of potentially earning a new or additional representative in the U.S. Congress. So the state of Oklahoma has really been aggressive in their outreach campaign and their education, adding residential addresses to provide outreach and to make sure the Census Bureau has information so that they can really do a proper counting in the state. We do think that this will be the year where representatives are redelegated among the states and that Oklahoma has the opportunity. So we're trying to join in statewide efforts to make sure that the state and the nation know that citizens still live here. American Indians are across the country, particularly in Oklahoma. So for us, it's not just about, the decennial process of being counted, but really a representation, and that our representation matters. So engagement in the census is part of making sure that we're recognized statewide.
Well, it always seemed to me that with stronger numbers, then we have a stronger position, more muscle, so to speak, when it comes to state politics. And unfortunately, the state of Oklahoma hasn't really been as up to date as it should be. I mean, there's still an educational process going on, and we need to continue the efforts that are going in there. But as everyone says, it affects the amount of money, the attention we get. And if we added another voice in Congress, that gives us even more leverage, I think, too.
Yes, we have great relationships now with some of our representatives. And we have 2 tribal representatives from the state of Oklahoma. They make up, I think, 11 nationwide. So we have strong representation, but it's always great to have another voice in the crowd of voices in D.C. And so this is really an opportunity for us to continue to weigh in and just, be part of the state population and make sure that we're integral to that process and being counted as part of that. And there's actually specific instructions in the census and an opportunity to indicate tribal citizenship. And so we have some information today that we're happy to share with you and talk with you about how best to make sure that you're counted and counted properly.
Okay, we're going to jump on that in just a second, but one more question, I guess, is still politically motivated, although I, as a journalist, don't have any position. It's like our representatives need to know that we're out there watching. And they haven't always supported the positions that tribal governments have favored. And so it's kind of say, hey, remember us? We're 14% of your district right here.
Exactly.
That's kind of a nice political punch, if you will.
As someone who used to work in D.C., it's invaluable when you're doing advocacy work to have numbers to really support. Because I think, we live here in the communities. We see what happens every day. We can always provide a qualitative story about how funding impacts someone's lives. But really being able to put numbers to that story, that narrative, the ask is so important for our representatives in DC. So as our leadership goes, or even at the state level, illustrating where our communities live and what their experiences is, because the census does ask some information about your household and their ages. And we know from our studies with citizenship that our population is a little bit different than the nationwide experience among tribal communities. We actually have an older population than most communities. And so our needs are just different from those nationally, but if we had some data to back that up, it's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly in a place like Disneyland on the Potomac.
Yes.
I did 11 years there too, so it's like that's a completely different world. And it's amazing the way those politicians and the staff members and the federal agencies respond to public opinion. It's like, whoops, they don't like that, maybe we ought to change it a little and see what they want. Okay. All right, now we're looking at how the tribe is conducting its campaign, so you want to fill us in?
Right now, initially we had planned to do a lot of outreach publicly. Of course, with COVID-19 hitting, that changed our plans. So we have focused to pushing outreach via social media. We've created a page on the MCN website, which I'll give that to you now. It's mcn-nsn.gov/2020 census. It has information there on, why should I fill out the census? It has information on how can I be counted? How do I fill out my tribal affiliation? And shortly we'll be putting together a tutorial video. So if you decide to fill out your census at 11:30 on Saturday night, you can follow along with the instructions on how to do that.
That's, I think, the way my wife did that, about 11:30-ish or so.
Yeah.
Sounds about right on the weekend. Now, that eliminates the need for anyone to have to go into somebody's office. Mm-hmm. It helps us kind of maintain our distance, if you will. Yes. And I understand that the census has been working year after year to kind of simplify this thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that and this year is the first year you can fill out your census online. So this year they have designated 3 ways for you to do it. You can call in and do it by phone. You can visit the website, or you can call and request a mailed copy.
And we actually think that for those or residents that live in more rural areas, they're actually receiving both the online code and a paper form. So if you've gotten 2 letters from the census, please don't throw them away. Right. Take the time to complete them. If you don't want to do it online, you can definitely fill out the paper. And every paper form actually has the phone number. So if you feel more comfortable talking with somebody, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
Now, this census occurs every 10 years. What is it, decennial or something like that? Some fancy word.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it tries to get a grip on the population of the United States. Now, I know that you may not be keeping up with all the numbers or things like that, but do you all have any indication on how the Mvskoke Creek Nation has been doing? Have we been on the increase, or are we holding level, or perhaps declining?
Well, in the 2010 census, what was reported was only about half of what we believe our population to be. At that time, it was reported somewhere around the 40,000 mark. And so I don't think that we've grown 40,000 citizens in 10 years. Right now, our numbers are showing, closer to 89,000. But this is another reason why it's important for our citizens to fill out the census, because we don't share that information with the federal government. Being sovereign nations, we keep their information. So it helps us by them filling it out, because their data goes into all the numbers that factor into these programs and how to best serve them based upon their data and their needs.
Even if they don't live here in Oklahoma, they can still indicate that their citizenship is Mvskoke Creek Nation, and be counted there and really help that community in that geographical location, because most of the data that's used from the census is geographically driven. So even for our at-large citizens, family members, it's important for them to actually fill it out and indicate that they are American Indian, and if they choose to indicate their tribal citizenship, that's very helpful to us. Again, when we're doing studies like the economic impact study, that's been very useful in statewide discussions. Those are numbers that we can use, again, to just narrate where we are, what our experiences are, and the kind of needs that we have.
I would think it would be kind of a source of pride.
Of course.
Saying, yeah, I am enrolled with the Mvskoke Creek Nation. I am going to stand up and be counted. But that isn't necessarily a deciding factor. You can self-designate, as some of our famous people have done, and say, I'm a member of the Creek Nation, and count me as such without having to be formally enrolled, right?
Yes, that's actually true. There's no request from the census office to provide your citizenship card or private information, and any information you do share with the census office is private, even from federal agencies. So all data is really shared at an aggregate level. That's why it's kind of hard for us to tell you exactly what the count was in 2010. And to be really honest with you, between 2010 and 2020, there have been significant advances for tribal communities to be able to identify how their citizens should refer to them in the census. So we have 3 ways to do that, so that they'll be counted as our citizens. So they won't ask for a citizenship card. If someone does that, it's inappropriate. You do not have to provide it, and all that information remains private all the way up to the top.
All right. As the campaign really gets underway, you always have the non-believers or the critics, shall we kindly say, and the word conspiracy theory pops up, saying, they're trying to get everything you can about you, and they're going to get you and get your guns and whatever else. Now, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's not what's happening here, right?
No, absolutely not. All information is kept completely confidential. It's not shared with any social services. It's not shared with any law enforcement. It only stays within that bureau.
And if you're concerned about the information that's available, you can go out to the census website now and look at the data that's available from 2010. So if it's something that you are concerned about or worried about exchange of information, you can see what's publicly available and how you can drill down into the data. It's still all aggregate numbers. And as the numbers get smaller, the geographic locations get larger. So they really do try to do their best to protect information that comes in. And as someone who worked with a person who worked at the Census Bureau, even getting access to raw data from census, even aggregate raw data, is very, very difficult, even as a researcher. And so your information is protected. I think they don't release raw data for 50 years. So, most of us might not be lucky enough to be here in 50 years to see our responses come out publicly. So it's really just a head count. They do take your name. I think that's just to verify that people are not being duplicatively counted internally.
Yeah. So if I'm still around in 50 years, First of all, that's going to be pretty amazing. But the Census Bureau would call me up and say, "Are you still here? How did you do that?" Now, has there been any feedback at all at this point? I know it's early in the process. Started at Tuxuk Bay in Alaska, first counting there with a 94-year-old lady there. And now it's beginning to progress. Now, have you heard anything either from our own citizens or perhaps aware of any tribal government somewhere else in the nation reacting or responding? Are they falling in behind? What do you hear?
So far, what we've seen, as being on the Census Committee, we haven't heard so much on the reporting yet, but we know other tribal nations are doing the same things we are, pushing and asking their citizens to please fill this out and providing those resources and information to those communities. Of course, the other 4 of the 5 nations have been doing that as well.
Right. And the numbers in Oklahoma are pretty amazing. First and second and third and fourth. Largest tribes in the country.
Exactly.
The Navajos figure in, but come on, guys, let's get counted. As the committee gets together, what are the kinds of things that are on your mind in your meetings? Is there like an agenda? What's topping that agenda, perhaps?
Of course, topping the agenda is how do we connect with our citizens? How do we get them the information best for them to make those decisions, and making sure that they're going through channels that will actually hit our citizens. Some of the things, of course, we've been on social media. We've been running some radio commercials, trying to hit some online videos and things like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of elders, particularly in rural areas, and I assume that's going to be a challenge to connect with them and then to convince them to take part. Are you making any special efforts in those areas?
Well, Mvskoke Media has been a critical part of that. So we've run some ads in the newspapers to try and draw awareness. A reporter did an article kind of early on about, preparing for the census. But the reality is that official counting, quote unquote, doesn't start till April 1st. So we're really using opportunities like this to start the conversation. We were planning to do some outreach at elderly nutrition facilities. Obviously, those things have changed. So we're kind of reconsidering our options. Census Bureau has a couple of tribal liaisons that we've been working with, and we're kind of feeding information. So we've been in touch with some communities in California to see what they're doing. Obviously, they're in a much more dire situation than we are. So they're doing like telebank, the phone banking, and trying to call folks. So we're just exploring any options, and we're asking council members to carry our message to communities when they're doing outreach. We sent out some reminders to folks who are at large, really encouraging them to fill out so that they're represented at large. I know that that's something that's really important for them. And so we've been kind of hitting it on all the ways we can right now. I'm hoping that as the census counting time has been extended, so now it actually goes through July. Hopefully we'll be able to connect with some of those folks in the summer months, around some gatherings at church and festival and as stomp grounds get together. And we're really just asking citizens as a call to action to remind their friends and family members to complete the census form or to help them do it if they need assistance. So we're going to be there to provide help, and there's a number with the census, so you're welcome to call our offices, and our contact information is on the website, or we're happy to help you do whatever you need to do.
Would someone be able to kind of fill out their questionnaire by calling you?
Of course, if they had questions for us, and there were, especially if they have a complex case, we've got some folks who have been trained, if you have a foster child, or if you have kids who are in college, or there are some questions about how do I fill this out, we have resources to be able to provide support for that.
We spoke with the head liaison, I forget her name at the moment, a couple of weeks back about how they were going to be conducting the census for Native Americans and their particular focus. And of course, one of the challenges we discussed were the seniors living in rural areas. Where you go 10 miles before you get there. And, we've got a similar situation here back in the hills, or the sticks, as we say. And some of those folks don't have the connection with a computer and
Right.
maybe a little bit leery of calling somebody. She mentioned in many of those cases they would be sending around census takers
Yes.
to actually go to the door and knock on the door and this kind of thing. Is that going to be occurring here in Creek Country?
As far as we know, that is still the case. Usually they don't send the census takers out until a little bit further into the census season when the areas are identified where the need is. So if people south of I-40 are not completing the census at the same rate, then that's where those areas will be targeted.
One of the questions we asked the lady was, how are you going to train these folks? I'd be a little bit leery of walking up to somebody's front door because you never know what's on the other side of it, or meeting somebody's pack of mean old Indian dogs coming up, tearing your pants leg off. Are any of our people going to be trained like this in how to handle and juggle these situations?
So we did work with employment and training to invite citizens to become enumerators. Those are the people who go around to your house and knock on your doors. And they were really active in doing some outreach. So there will be Creek citizens who are helping enumerate or count, knock on doors. The census has decided to delay that process until about the middle of May out of respect for some of the health safety that we have to adhere to right now. But there are still plans to do that. So you may see a familiar face come around and knock. We were really encouraging folks in January and February to sign up. Right now, they are not hiring anyone, but they're still accepting applications. So if folks are interested in part-time work, you set your own schedule. They tell you kind of what your area is, and you go out and do the counting. So we think the counting is probably going to start in mid-May and run through the end of June, early July. And they'll, again, be targeting those blocks that are undercounted where families just haven't responded. They have to have a percentage in every census block, which is the smallest geographic measurement, in order to move forward. So the census is taking it very seriously.
Would those census takers be clearly identified?
They will be. So that was actually one thing. I'm glad you asked that question. They will either be wearing a shirt or carrying a bag that says Census 2020, and they will have a badge on. So you can ask for them to identify themselves prior to opening your door. Do not provide your information to someone who is not clearly identified as an enumerator or a census employee. We do know that there will be scams, and so for our elders, for sure, we're very concerned about that, and we ask them to just be vigilant and make sure that you ask for a badge or some form of identification that they're there as an official employee of
I'm glad you brought up that word scams. We're understanding, of course, there are a lot of vultures, evil things that come out of the woodwork to take advantage of, one, the viral scare, and then two, to seize the opportunity to perhaps pry this information out census-wise. Now, are there any that you are aware of and want to kind of warn people about?
We haven't seen any official threats yet. We are, set to receive that information. I guess I would just caution anyone who is using an online form, make sure that your website is 2020census.gov. If it says .org or .com, that's not an appropriate website to provide information to. So just be vigilant, follow the instructions on the letter. If something looks a little bit fishy or hinky, you don't have to finish the response. You can close down the window and give us a call because we want to protect your information just as anyone else. And the census won't ask you private information like your social security number. I took mine online so that I could provide some testimony to that. So really just ask your name, the name of the people who live with you, their date of birth, and their sex. And then it asks you one question about your household, whether you own or rent it. And so if you have any other questions, or they're asking any other questions and it's not the long form of the census, then it's probably a scam.
Okay, and you can always say no.
Exactly.
The focus has been on, of course, dealing with these situations and, pointing people in the right direction. Has there been any final thoughts about the tribe and particular tribal focus? I mean, can somebody get some assistance in Mvskoke if they were speaking the language? This kind of specialized help. I know that's a new one on you, but
I don't know necessarily that that's something we've talked about. I think it came up once in committee, and so far no one has requested that information, but if they did, we would try our best to accommodate.
Yeah, give the language department a buzz.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think because the questions are fairly simple, if there is a need to do a one-on-one interview and help someone complete it properly, we would definitely facilitate that. So just give our office a call. If you know a family member or a friend who needs some support, we're happy to do that and provide that translation. The census does translate, I think, to 23 languages.
Actually, 59 non-English
Whoa.
languages.
So maybe next time we'll have Mvskoke on there. This time we just weren't able to do that.
A final question, and I think it's probably already been resolved. There was some controversy over the inclusion of a question regarding citizenship, whether or not somebody was illegally here or not. I think is the motivation for that, and that, forgive me, that's horrible to even think about. But that sort of thing is not in this questionnaire.
No, that's actually one of the reasons we're a little bit delayed on some of our outreaches, because the census was trying to work out what the final form would look like. There is no question about the individuals who live in your home and whether or not they're an American citizen or a naturalized citizen in the United States. So there's no question about that. It really just asks you about your origin.
Oh, well, you could fill it out, citizen, Mvskoke Creek Nation.
Yep.
I'm sure
we hope
people-
you fill it out as a
Yeah.
Mvskoke Creek citizen.
Yes.
All right, well, we've got to wrap this up now. If people have questions or want to talk to you or even fill out a form, how do they get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with us is you can go to the website at mcn-nsn.gov/2020 census, or you can give us a call at Public Relations at 918-732-7621.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda and Tara. We appreciate you all coming in with all the other worries we have going on right now. You're still calling for people to stand up and be counted.
Yes,
Well, marvelous. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a short pause here, and we're going to be back with an old familiar friend of mine who's in a new position. Mr. Jason Salzman will be joining us to talk about the tribe's position in regards to the coronavirus and a status report as of, I guess, this morning. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew, 1240 AM and 106.3 FM. Thank you for joining us here. And speaking of joining us here, an old familiar face who's now on the other side of the fence, so I get to tear him up, teasing him and getting all kinds of my licks in here. Mr. Jason Salzman, thank you, sir, for coming in. We appreciate it. Now, you're wearing a new title these days.
Yes, sir, Gary. Thanks for having me so much on the program. Very glad to set in for the principal chief this morning and get some information out. And he's a very busy man, of course, right now. And so glad to be able to answer anything to the best of my ability and keep our citizens out there up to date and brushed up on what's going on with the tribe as we face this global pandemic, this global crisis that I feel comfortable saying that we've never seen before at this point.
Right. Well, that's the closest thing we've seen lately was the Ebola, and a lot of people are making reference to the, was it 1918 Spanish flu. We have not quite reached those sorts of limits or expectations or whatever you want to call it, but right now Oklahoma has seen people dying of this particular virus, and there are cases. Now, numbers popping up within Creek jurisdiction, although we have not heard of Creek citizens being affected yet, or anyone in Okmulgee for that matter. Okay, now I'm sure people are kind of wondering where we are. We just spoke with the folks who are doing the census work, and they're constrained somewhat from the physical limitations, but we're understanding now that the tribe is in a position where many of the facilities are not quite open anymore, and some are partially open, and some of our personnel have been furloughed, so to speak. So why don't we start there, kind of give us the official word.
Well, we started everything sort of on a tribal level with this late February and really the middle of February. It sort of was on our radar, getting together a Mvskoke Creek Nation Coronavirus Task Force, which consisted of our Mvskoke Creek Nation Department of Health, the CDC, which was involved with guidance and everything like that, but also all of our cabinet members and directors that are in place right now, basically to just see where we're at, what we're looking at, and as the thing started to intensify, so did the tribe's response, almost in lockstep. With this thing is changing hourly, and from the office of the principal chief, since that time, we have had daily consultation, and I mean 7 days a week, 24 hours a day on the job. If we're not physically in the office, we're talking about it on the phones. We're working with different agencies to see what we can do. But the very first thing that the tribe really did that kind of got everyone's attention was that the chief declared a state of emergency for the Mvskoke Creek Nation. And really at that time, it was more of a opening up for maybe the recouping of federal funds on anything that we might have a loss with. And then, the other eye-catching part of this was closing all the casinos. That was a very tough decision, but it was one that we felt that we wanted to be on the front end of, not the back end of. We wanted to be proactive, not reactive. With this thing, it was very important for us and our tribal members to know that the safety, the public health of our citizens and the public in general are paramount. It's not about money. It never will be about money. It will always be about taking care of our citizens. Every decision we've made, the bottom dollar has been at the very back end. It's been considered because we have employees to pay, and we are paying those casino employees while they're out for the time being. We are also paying our citizens. We went to a non-essential versus essential model for our Mvskoke citizens and our employees at the complex. So you guys may have felt this at Mvskoke Media as well. You probably got people working from home. If they can't work from home, paid administrative leave and taking care of them in that regard, because we understand that this isn't something that anybody brought upon themselves, that the tribe brought upon itself. This is something that is affecting us all, that we are having to basically do the best we can to respond to it. And every action we've taken has also been in consultation with the other tribes. We're on weekly conference calls with the tribal chiefs of the 5 tribes. We are on a statewide conference call with all the chiefs regarding the gaming decisions. And also, in those weekly tribal consultations, we're talking with the chiefs, and we're seeing that in the Intertribal Council, I can't speak for all, but in the Intertribal Council, the Chickasaw Nation, the Seminole Nation, ourselves, the Cherokee Nation, and the Choctaws, we're really in lockstep with all of the personnel and HR moves type of things we've made with our employees, 65 and over, chronic illnesses, anything that puts them at risk. Go home and we'll ask questions later about semantics and everything like that. Paramount to us is that they are safe and that they are not at risk. So we have been in talk with federal grant agencies about what may arise from, let's say we have a federally funded grant program, then that's how those employees at one of our programs gets paid. There are restrictions on that. You know, some of those grants require certain things. We've been talking with federal agencies on exactly what the word is on those restrictions right now, and the preliminary talks that we've gotten to this point is that exactly what we are feeling ourselves is that get the people home. That's the paramount thing right now. We're not worried about restrictions or anything like that.
That's got to be an incredibly tough decision. I mean, I think in terms of the economic wallop we're getting, not only in terms of revenue, which is it's hugely significant, but the people who work there too. And you're talking about the gaming side of it, right? Okay. Right. That I some of the things that the public doesn't see are the things that I think that sometimes that I wish that they could see. The GOAB meeting, when the decision was made to close all of those facilities, was the best word I can come up with right now is taxing. Just the look on everyone's face. Nobody's defeated, but at the same time, we understand the gravity of these situations and these decisions that are having to be made. And I would ask everyone out there, I don't want to get too heavy or anything like that, but just keep your tribal administration, your chiefs, your council members, your decision makers, and all of us really in your prayers, because this is something that they're carrying daily on their shoulders. I promise you, they're not trying to interrupt your services. They're trying to make sure that we stop the spread of COVID-19 at all costs so that we can get back to normal routines, normal business at the tribe. It's not about interrupting service. That's the last thing we want to do. Right. Actually, I had a phone call the other afternoon from a lady who said some of them are taking it upon themselves to contact the Creek citizens to all pray that evening at 7 p.m. for a halting of this disease. Our own people and all Americans, and saying, just take a moment or so to ask for some help that comes from above.
Yeah, and not all guidance comes from the CDC. We can get guidance from the Creator, whoever we believe sends us spiritual strength and guidance at this time. And for a lot of our folks, that comes from Ofunga. From a lot of our folks, it comes from Jesus Christ. From a lot of our folks, it just comes for their own inner fortitude and the strength that they have within them. So we're calling on you to whatever you want to. And Gary, I'm glad you asked that, because it allows me to share some good things that we're seeing. We're seeing citizens band together to take meals to elders. We're seeing citizens from different departments combine with other departments that they do not work at to help clean and disinfect areas so that we can stay safe at the buildings, the ones that have to be there. We're seeing citizens and departments take fleet vehicles, from the fleet vehicle pool and take them to health and say, whatever you need these vehicles for at this time, EMT services, emergency, whatever. If it gets to that point, these are available to you first, and then we'll figure out the rest of it behind that. We really want to push a One Mvskoke initiative, and that is all people out there that are listening. If you want to volunteer, call me. Look me up, Jason Salzman, 918-732 7209. I'm sorry. New office, new phone, so bear with me there. jsalzman at mcn-nsn.gov. That's a better way to get a hold of me. jsalzman at mcn-nsn.gov. If you're out there and you want to volunteer and help in any way that you can, email me. I will put you in a database. We are plugging people into the situations where they are needed the most. So That's out
Okay.
there, and I'm proud to say that our citizens are doing it.
Well, I understand you have this new position and coming in a huge challenge.
Yeah, it's been really a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I noticed it's upgraded your wardrobe too.
Well, sometimes you got to look the part,
Yeah,
even in the midst of crisis, So
Right. Yeah, actually, that's true now. But as we were talking about CDC, that guidance from them, I'm thinking, well, there's the federal agency, but there's also the Creator's Divine Care.
Yes.
CDC.
Yeah. Hey, nice, very good stuff.
No,
you might want to copyright that.
Yeah, it took me a second or two to think of it, though. Now, what is the position in regards to facilities and personnel for the tribe? People are kind of wondering, is it all shut down?
Yeah.
Is it all, you can't get in, or only the most severe cases, or blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about the executive branch right now.
Well, I have good news for your program because
we're still here.
Well, any newsman would love it when somebody comes through with, I have breaking news for you. Mm-hmm. But breaking news today is that effective today at noon, we are closing all Mvskoke Creek Nation buildings, lobbies, areas to the public. Effective at noon until further notice. We are closing down our buildings and our complex facilities to the public. And that's happening at noon today. So if you come to the building, if you come to the tribe expecting to get in and you're not an employee that reports to that building regularly, you will see a sign on the door indicating you to stop and contact the number that is on that building's sign if you need anything. Also, they can contact the tribal number main line and get information there as well. Our operators are still operating, and they are sending people out to the number or the respective department or facility that they need. So, folks, I can't stress it enough. We are not shutting down the tribe. We are just shutting down access to the public in our buildings. We have to do this at this point to stop the spread of this COVID-19 virus, to flatten the curve, do what we can. People are dying. It's serious, mm-hmm. and the tribe's getting serious, and we have been serious, but it's time for people to, and I can't stress it enough, stay home. It's time for people to stay home, and it's time for little trips to the tribe to get your citizenship card, to get your tag. That doesn't matter right now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter anymore. They're not. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol has said they are not pulling on anybody over for an expired tag right now. They are not. Yeah. And we also, people out there, your citizenship card will be waiting for you whenever we get past this, I promise. And those things are not important right now. The most important thing is that we stop the spread of this virus so that we can get back to normal. Because if we don't stop the spread of this virus and we are closed down for a prolonged period of time, what does that do for the services that we can provide? It gets them a big hit. Mm-hmm. So please, to stop the spread of this and to get back to normal as soon as possible so that we can fully provide services and things to the people of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, please just stay home and shelter in place as best as you can.
Okay, to again summarize and underline what you've just said. First of all, the buildings are going to be closed.
Buildings are going to be closed.
Today at noon.
Today at noon, yes.
So that doesn't mean that the tribe is going out of business.
No.
There will be business conducted. You're just going to have to find another way to do it, over the phone or perhaps by computer.
Yes.
Or I don't know what else you could.
Yeah, there will be web-based services.
Okay.
Everything that you can do online, do it online. The tribe is not in any way, shape, or form wholly shut down. Mm-hmm. This is just a physical building, lobby area, any gathering place really is shut down. And we would also encourage people to stay in groups of, if you are in a building and you are essential, and we do need to keep things rolling, we need to keep getting meals to our seniors, we need to keep our food distribution centers open, and talking with the other tribal leaders. That's been the key, that's been the focus, is hey, who would argue that food is a non-essential thing? No, it's very much essential, and we need to keep the food services in place and rolling as much as possible, especially with the economic interruptions that we've seen dealing with this issue. So the food service, food distribution, we're still good there. There's no interruptions there. The food, our elderly nutrition program, the homebound seniors are still getting their meals. Everyone that dines in, come get your meal, take it to the house. There's to-go meals only. I think there's only one. There was only one food distribution center that had been sort of affected. That was in Wetumpka, but I think we've gotten volunteers together. We've gotten people together, and we're trying to make sure that nothing is interrupted in our food distribution program whatsoever. So there's people banding together saying, I'll go here, where do you need me? I'll go here, where do you need me? And that's really, really strengthening the chief's heart right now, because the chief is under a great amount of pressure and stress and everything like that. But he's holding up great, and he's doing a great job for the people. This is a chief that cares about his people. I promise you that. And he is somebody that will take it to heart, and he'll want to help. And this is also a chief that I was telling Jared out there in the lobby. This is a chief that has a problem a little bit with social distancing. we got to get him to quit hugging people because he's just a very he wears his heart on his sleeve. And so one of the things that he's doing, the actions that he's taking, have the people and their best interest at the very forefront of every decision, and of every phone call he takes, of every meeting he has to be in on, and really the meat and potatoes of this thing, and the tough thing is the decisions he's having to make.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine coming into a new job like he did, and bang.
Yeah.
Of course, the guy, his predecessor, also had one, huge with the budget. Yeah. But he's hanging in there. Everything I've heard so far has been, in a positive direction, but tempered with a word of caution here and there.
Sure.
Now, we've been getting piecemeal a lot of notices that events have been canceled. And first of all, I think it's going to be horrendous effect on the wild onion dinners.
No, don't. I'm telling you, it's straight from the top. That guy's about as he's about as crushed about those as anybody. I promise you. But in the spirit of not being too heavy-handed on this deal, because we realize that those are church functions. Those are church fundraisers. Right. In a lot of ways, those are the things that keep the churches going for the whole year. So we wanted to be very careful, and from a tribal perspective, because that's not those aren't tribal events, even though they are in essence and in spirit, because there's so many tribal people, and it's really a cultural thing. That's not a government mandated event, or it's not anything that the principal chief signs off on. So with the wild onion dinners, we left it up to the churches. But the pleasing thing is seeing, although we're crushed that some of these wild onion dinners, and most of them have been canceled, we're seeing that the churches are making the right decisions in the best interest of the people and the folks' safety, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to have to mandate decisions that ought to be made in the best interest of folks. Right. You want to be able to have them have the freedom to make the right choice, and we're seeing that, and we're very pleased with it.
Well, yeah, it's quite a target for jokes right now. Yeah. But it might be interesting to see something like
we're taking all jokes right now.
a drive-through, perhaps.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, and that's another beautiful thing about this. Get creative. Get creative with everything. If you're a business owner out there, get creative with the way that you deliver your services. If you're a church, get creative with the way that you deliver your sermons, that you deliver your message to people, the way that you gather with people. This may change the entire world. Going forth, the way that we gather, the way that we communicate, the way that we are not going to shake hands anymore, I imagine. I will be giving everybody an elbow bump from here on out.
Hard on your sleeve.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, not to again sound the alarm, but I think this is a seminal changing moment in society, in a lot of ways.
That's seminal, not Seminole.
Seminole, yeah, Seminole. Sorry, I maybe a wrong word choice there, but So no, it's one of those situations where we're and Jared put it really, really well out there in the lobby. This basically puts us all at square one on a level playing field to then send the roots up in maybe a different way from here on out and see what things look like then. In a lot of ways, we don't know what they look like then, because we're still in the eye of the hurricane.
Right.
Which is weird because I've always been told that the eye of the hurricane's pretty calm, but this is definitely not calm.
Yeah, you see the movie Twister and this calm thing in a minute. Nah, ain't happening.
Nope, not happening right now, no.
Okay, now, you mentioned, of course, the effect on everybody.
Yeah.
We're seeing people in our own government here, state government, have been affected.
Yeah.
Entertainment and celebrities have been hit. Government officials in Disneyland on the Potomac now are showing up.
Right.
So, it's something that we have to take in such a new fashion, I think. As you said, and many people have said now, it's changing the world so radically. Now, let me get back to cancellations now.
Yes.
Of course, the feasts, the Fumbaji is going to have to be delivered in some other fashion. We've seen the cancellation of like the history seminar, other health kinds of things, not necessarily COVID related, but other things. Youth programs have been temporarily suspended. Has your office heard of any others or anything it's really important to point out at this point that is not going to be happening or will be postponed?
At this time, the things that we've announced are the only things that we've absolutely got a decision on regarding any kind of closure, postponement, anything like that. Just because of the timeline, we don't want to outkick our coverage as far as jumping out there, postponing something that's very important to certain departments and everything like that, or important to our people. Let's say into a grand avenue of something like the Mvskoke Creek Nation Festival. At this time, it's just inappropriate for us to explore any sort of final decision, one way or another on those things. I expect that, and I give you my word as the Chief's communications guy, when those decisions are made, they'll be portrayed immediately, and we'll get those out. That way people absolutely know what's going on as far as different scenarios. But I will say that everything that's been postponed to this point, that's the only thing I really can share as far as decisions that have definitely been made are those postponements. But I would also share that the way that we're operating right now is that we view this pandemic as a life and death situation. So if it's not life and death as far as gathering or an event right now, it ain't happening. So that's the way that we're looking at these things. We can't stress enough apologies for the inconvenience, but also we are counting on there never being in the history of mankind more understanding of those decisions than right now. We ask for the understanding. We almost expect it because of what kind of situation we're in. There's nobody out there that can tell me that they don't know what's going on right now. It's inescapable.
Right.
And so we're counting on that understanding of the situation we find ourselves in.
Let me go to an area here that is, I think, pretty critical in our discussion here. Health facilities, clinics, are they going to be open? Will there be changes in what they will do and won't do?
Yes.
Have we got enough supplies in case there is a huge demand, and can we protect our workers? A lot of questions there.
Right, yeah. The health system, they're taking all available ideas, concepts, everything to protect their facilities and their healthcare workers, because I'm telling you, our healthcare workers are a precious commodity right now. We have to make sure that they are healthy and can come and provide those services, their expertise to patients. Right now, we've taken, and I will just speak for Secretary of Health Sean Terry on some of the steps we've taken. I don't know if you all have been able to report on these yet, but elective surgeries. They're not doing elective surgeries at any of the facilities right now. They're not. They're encouraging. If you are out there and it is absolutely not necessary for you to be at the emergency room, do not come to the emergency room. If you have a sniffle and your throat's a little raspy, don't come to the emergency room for it. If you are having severe symptoms, and I mean, I've got to get to the doctor now, that's when you come to the emergency room. Because, as you mentioned, PPE equipment, protective equipment for our workers. Right now, according to Dr. Beats, yesterday we had a virtual town hall, and according to Dr. Beats, right now we're hearing that in comparison to some other health facilities, maybe some bigger, larger health facilities, our PPE is actually in pretty good standing. And he also received word yesterday morning from Indian Health Services that they will be able to provide us personal protection equipment for those workers as needed. So those things are our good news. These are the things that we look at and we go, thumbs up, all right. Talked with Sean Terry this morning, and we're going to start tents on the outside of the clinics for pre-screening, even of the people coming in with severe COVID symptoms that they feel are severe COVID symptoms, to be screened outside of the facility before they're even let in, anything like that. We also have telemedicine that's been put in place. If you are needing to receive your medicine, your pharmaceuticals, the telemedicine that's been put in place, and where you can call. They've also enacted an auto refill on everybody's prescriptions. That's something that people are, I think, probably going to be pleased with, as far as we're just trying to simplify everything while also taking these sort of screening measures and being kind of a wall protecting our facilities and our healthcare workers. But those are the measures that we've taken. And a great resource right now is the Department of Health's Facebook page. Just go and search the Mvskoke Creek Nation Department of Health. Also, a great resource is creekhealth.org. If you go to creekhealth.org right now and click on the top marquee of their homepage, it is all COVID-19, everything you need to know, from the Mvskoke Creek Nation's COVID-19 hotline to all of the frequently asked questions on this, to their protocols that they've put in place, to numbers for medicines that they may need, anything like that. It's all there in a one-stop shop. And if you are out there and you have internet access, you have a laptop, you have remote internet access where you can access it anywhere, please, in your community, identify your elders that may need some of those, some of that information. Right now, we're developing stickers. I mean, not stickers. I'm sorry. We're developing refrigerator magnets to send home. Those are being in production right now. But refrigerator magnets to send home in the to-go meals with elders to have on their refrigerator, and that magnet will have the tribal home office number, which will get them to any program or department they need for the tribe. It will have the Light Horse Police number, which I'm talking to Light Horse Police today about all the things that they're doing. And also it has the Mvskoke Creek Nation COVID-19 hotline.
All right, Jason Salzman, we want to thank you so much for sharing all this information. That's critical stuff. We're going to stay on top of it, and this program, we hope, will be at your disposal if you need it. We want to congratulate you on your new title, your new wardrobe, and
thank you.
Your new set of headaches.
Well, yeah, new set of headaches, and I still don't have any hair to cover them all up. And now I'm getting grayer by the day, I think. No, I'm
losing mine.
Right, exactly. I've looked at it as in a positive way. Right, wrong, or indifferent, or good or bad. I'm part of tribal history right now. And being able to serve this tribe in such a grand capacity, making and being a part of decisions that are hopefully saving lives, while also making sure that our tribal citizens are taken care of to the utmost ability from its government, which is the only reason that we're here, is to take care of the citizens.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, now we do have some community announcements, but take these with a grain of salt. They may be canceled. This one is in April, the Earth Day 50th anniversary, April 17th, and the 24th, tree planting, cleanup, and recycling events. Mvskoke Tribal Citizens meeting was scheduled for the 28th. We have no idea whether or not that meeting will be conducted, so you might want to check with the group there. The language department has got its immersion camp coming up and scheduled for some new classes, but you might want to check with them on the dates. Holdenville has a arts and crafts sale for Saturday, May the 2nd down there. So once again, check with them on the possibilities there. We do have quite a list of wild onion dinners, but you might want to check with the church and see what they've got on their schedule. Okay, we are going to stay as current as possible with the information we can share regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, and how our own Mvskoke Nation will be reacting. Want to say, Mado Mabu Ejitskat. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.